Jasmine Crockett's unwavering defense of her identity and values in response to Barron Trump's insult is a moment that reflects both the challenges and responsibilities of being a public figure in today's America. When Barron Trump made his remark, it was not simply a casual insult. It was a statement that touched upon deeply personal themes of identity, representation, and respect. For Crockett, who has long positioned herself as a voice for truth and accountability, staying silent in the face of such an insult would have been seen as weakness, not only by her political adversaries, but also by the countless individuals who looked to her as a symbol of resilience. Her response carried a weight far beyond her own personal dignity. It became a declaration of strength for every person who has felt belittled or marginalized by dismissive comments from those in positions of privilege. What made Crockett's defense stand out was not only the fierceness of her words, but also the clarity with which she spoke. She chose not to engage in empty name-calling or shallow retaliation, but instead to confront the insult by affirming who she is and what she represents. This decision revealed a deliberate strategy, to use the moment not just to defend herself, but to highlight the broader issue of how women, people of color, and outspoken leaders are often subjected to personal attacks meant to undermine their credibility. In answering Barron Trump's insult directly, she turned what could have been a fleeting social controversy into a lasting statement about dignity and self-respect. Crockett's defense of her identity carried a powerful undercurrent of personal history. She has faced obstacles throughout her career, from skepticism about her ability to succeed in the political arena to the overt criticism she encounters daily as a bold and unapologetic voice in Congress. Each of these challenges has shaped the way she responds to opposition, and this moment was no different. By standing firmly and refusing to allow herself to be diminished, she demonstrated that her identity is not something that can be shaken by careless words. Instead, she used the insult as fuel, channeling it into a message that resonated with countless Americans who have similarly faced ridicule for simply being themselves. Her response also carried symbolic weight in terms of generational dynamics. Barron Trump, despite his youth, represents the extension of a political dynasty that is accustomed to wielding influence and commanding attention. Crockett's rebuttal to his insult made it clear that regardless of name or status, no one is beyond accountability when their words cross the line into personal attacks. In a political landscape where many fear the influence of powerful families, Crockett's unflinching defense reminded people that respect is not inherited. It is earned through one's conduct and character. Her refusal to allow herself to be silenced by someone associated with privilege highlighted her deep commitment to equality, fairness, and mutual respect. Another dimension of her defense was the way it resonated with audiences beyond politics. For many watching, Crockett's fiery comeback wasn't just about politics. It was about standing up against disrespect in any form. In workplaces, schools, and communities across the nation, people could see themselves in her position, confronted by someone who believed their words could diminish another person's worth. By speaking out with strength, Crockett gave voice to the frustrations of those who too often feel they must endure insult in silence. Her defense became a mirror reflecting the universal desire for dignity, and her words gave others permission to demand that dignity for themselves. Her defense also reflected a larger truth about leadership in times of conflict. Leaders are tested not when things are easy, but when they are targeted personally, when their character and identity are questioned. Crockett's ability to remain composed yet powerful in her words showed a kind of resilience that is rare in a climate dominated by outrage and sound bites. She used the moment to rise above mere insult and elevate the conversation to one about integrity, respect, and determination. In doing so, she reminded the public that leadership is not about avoiding conflict, but about meeting it with strength and conviction. Equally important is the way her defense underscores the necessity of authenticity in political life. Crockett has built her reputation on being unapologetically herself, refusing to conform to expectations that might make her more palatable to critics. In the face of Barron Trump's insult, she did not soften her words or attempt to gloss over the attack. Instead, she leaned into her authenticity, speaking with the same honesty and fire that has defined her public career. This authenticity not only reinforced her defense, but also strengthened her connection to her supporters, who value her precisely because she does not shy away from difficult moments. Finally, Crockett's defense of her identity and values illustrates a powerful lesson about resilience in the public eye. Insults, whether subtle or overt, are a constant reality for those who stand boldly in the political arena. What matters is not the insult itself, but the response to it. By standing tall and firing back with conviction, Jasmine Crockett showed that insults cannot define her, nor can they deter her from the larger mission she has set for herself as a leader and representative. Her defense was a reminder that true power lies not in tearing others down but in affirming one's own worth with clarity and confidence. The broader cultural and political implications of public figures exchanging personal attacks are significant, and they ripple far beyond the individuals directly involved. When a figure like Barron Trump steps into the public eye with a remark aimed at Jasmine Crockett, and she responds with equal force, it becomes more than just a personal clash. It represents a larger cultural moment where politics is no longer confined to policy debates or legislative action, but has become deeply intertwined with identity, respect, and the ways in which society engages with conflict. The shift toward personal attacks in political discourse has been a growing trend for years, and each high-profile exchange reinforces the normalization of this combative culture. What was once considered unbecoming of leaders has now become an expected part of the political spectacle, and this change shapes the way citizens view both their leaders and their political system. One of the cultural implications is the way personal attacks erode the boundary between private individuals and public personas. Public figures, especially those tied to political families, are increasingly drawn into controversies where their words are scrutinized and weaponized. Barron Trump's insult directed at Crockett was not just about her personally, but about what she represents in the political landscape. In turn, Crockett's fiery response was not just for herself, but for the countless people who saw in her a defense of their shared values. This cycle blurs the line between individual disputes and collective representation, transforming what could have been dismissed as a fleeting insult into a cultural flashpoint. Another dimension lies in how these exchanges affect public trust in political institutions. When citizens see leaders engaging in personal back-and-forths, it can either energize or alienate them. For some, Crockett's response may be celebrated as a necessary pushback against disrespect, a sign that politicians will no longer tolerate attacks without standing their ground for others. The spectacle of personal conflict reinforces cynicism about politics, suggesting that leaders are more focused on fighting each other than solving real problems. This dual effect illustrates how personal attacks shape not only the reputations of those involved, but also the perceptions of politics as a whole. The role of media in amplifying these exchanges cannot be overlooked. In today's digital age, moments of conflict are magnified, shared, and dissected across platforms within minutes. Barron Trump's insult and Crockett's fiery comeback were not confined to the initial exchange, but replayed endlessly online, each repetition adding fuel to the controversy. Social media in particular thrives on drama, and personal attacks provide exactly the kind of content that goes viral. The cultural implication here is that the very structure of modern media incentivizes conflict over dialogue, creating an environment where personal attacks are more valuable for attention than thoughtful debate. Leaders who wish to remain relevant often feel compelled to respond in kind, perpetuating a cycle where the loudest voices dominate the conversation, regardless of substance. There is also a generational aspect to consider. Younger audiences, who consume most of their political information through online platforms, are growing up with a version of politics where fiery exchanges and sharp comebacks are seen as markers of strength. Jasmine Crockett's decision to fire back resonates with younger supporters who value authenticity and boldness, while Barron Trump's insult reflects a new era where even the youngest members of political dynasties are thrust into the arena of public discourse. The normalization of personal attacks thus influences not only current debates, but also the expectations of future generations, who may come to view politics primarily as a stage for confrontation rather than governance. The political implications extend further when examining how these moments shape power dynamics. A public insult and a fiery defense are rarely isolated. They become symbols of broader struggles between parties, ideologies, and social movements. For Crockett, her response was an assertion of power in the face of privilege, a way to show that disrespect would not go unchecked. For Barron Trump, the insult was a way of signaling allegiance to a style of politics rooted in provocation and dominance. Each exchange, therefore, reinforces political identities and deepens partisan divides, as supporters on both sides rally behind their chosen figure. This intensifies polarization, making dialogue across political lines more difficult and increasing the likelihood that future interactions will follow the same combative pattern. At the cultural level, these exchanges reflect a broader struggle over values. Personal attacks are rarely just about personality. They often tap into deeper issues of race, gender, class, and social identity. When Crockett defends herself, she is also defending the right of women, minorities, and outspoken voices to exist unapologetically in spaces that have historically tried to silence them. Barron Trump's insult, by contrast, is interpreted by many as an attempt to diminish those voices through ridicule. The clash becomes symbolic of larger societal tensions, and the way the public interprets it reveals much about where the culture stands on issues of equality, respect, and representation. Finally, the broader implications of personal attacks in politics raise questions about the future of leadership itself. If politics continues down a path where personal conflict overshadows policy, the very definition of leadership may shift. Leaders will be judged not on their ability to craft solutions or build consensus, but on their skill in delivering sharp retorts and winning public spectacles. While this may energize certain groups, it risks reducing governance to performance, where the loudest voices drown out the most thoughtful ones. In this sense, exchanges like the one between Barron Trump and Jasmine Crockett are not just moments of entertainment or controversy. They are indicators of a deeper transformation in how politics is practiced and perceived in modern America.